Well, if I lost some pounds, then it would be better.
Hmm?
I think our mother was asking if there's going to be.
Oh, okay, I'll text her. I'll get you a drink. Is there anything you need?
No, I'm fine. Send my papers here, and should I start already?
I think you should start because we like to try and start and not make people wait when they.
Okay, no problem.
People feel like they came too early.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay, so we are here today to talk about woman's beauty, and this time it's not about the inner beauty. This time it's about outer beauty, which is not a very common topic around for women. We are here actually to talk about physical beauty. It is not a common topic because there is a kind of a misconception that beauty of a woman sometimes has to be hidden, sometimes it's not a kosher thing, and I don't agree with that. The Torah specified several times. Excuse my English. I'm an Israeli born. You can't take the Israeli out of the Israeli.
No problem. I'm Canadian.
Okay.
You're not from Ukraine.
Okay. And you are?
Iran.
From where?
Iran.
Iran. Oh wow. Kibbutz Galuyos in here. Okay. The Torah mentions several times. The pasuk said about Sarah, "Nena yadati ki isha yefat mar'eat." I know that you're a good-looking woman. Rivka Imenu was tovat mar'e me'od. She was very good-looking, and also Rachel was yefat to'ar v'yefat mar'e. And the Torah speaks about her physical looks, not only about her interior, which we are sure of. It does specify that she was physically beautiful. And the Torah doesn't say anything for nothing. The Torah has a reason for everything. The idea is that physical beauty has a lot to do with the way people treat you. Beauty, not only of the bodily beauty, even about an apartment and dwellings. The Torah says that dira na'ah marchiva da'ato shel adam. When you live in a nice surrounding, you're more calm, you're more peaceful, you're more in peace with yourself. Beauty has something that affects people. Now, when you see a woman out there and she is very neglected, and she's not clean and she doesn't smell good, people don't like it. And sometimes this type of woman has to work extra hard to prove that her inside is something worth showing. Because the first thing is, stay away, something is wrong here. Now, I'm not talking about, most of us are not blessed with a perfect gene pool. Most people are not perfect. Even the models you see out there, if you see them without makeup, without airbrushing the picture, you see that they are far from being perfect. If you meet them on the street the way they are, it's an everyday person that you see, not somebody specifically gorgeous. So the makeup was invented in order to cover what we don't want to show, and to enhance what we do want to show, and to correct what needs correcting. For example, people tend to have sometimes short eyebrows. You could make them look more perfect if you lengthen that eyebrow. You could use eyeshadow, or you could use a pencil to make it looking longer. If your nose needs some thinning, you could play a little bit with the colors to be able to show, to deceive the eye a little bit. If we have bags under the eyes, we're very tired, we cover them with the concealer. And if our lips are a little pale, we could enhance them with some color. That's what makeup was invented for. It is not a canvas that an artist takes and start painting purple, blue, green. You're welcome to do it with a canvas if you want to show your creativity, but our face is not made for all those colors. Our face, we're using makeup just to enhance what we want to enhance and to conceal what we would like to hide. Evening makeup is a little more of a show off. I mean, like, evening in general, evening wear is more of a costume than an everyday clothing. So then we're allowed to add some costume to our face and to add some color to our face. So then we could add the green, we could add the purple, we could play around a little bit. But when we come back to the basic makeup, if you want to look a little bit better, is just to go over the basic lines and enhance them. Now, then we have a problem as a frum woman. Shabbos comes and we put on our best outfit and we put on we washed our hair and maybe we curled it or straightened it, and then we put on our best clothing and we go on heels versus going on flats during the week. And then we go out and our face is bare. Maybe on Friday night we have some makeup, the next day we wake up and there is nothing on it. And it's not an easy nisoyon. It's difficult for us because there is no woman who would say, I don't care about how I look. Every woman likes to look her best. And when you put in all you've got into Shabbos, you want your face to have you want your face to look good too. When you go to a wedding, you put on the clothing, the heels, and the makeup. And when you go on Shabbos, you can put on the makeup. Again, it's not easy. I call it a Shabbos beauty when you go out all dressed up and bare face. But not everybody likes this Shabbos beauty. So we could always have the option of going to a Rav and ask the Rav about what to do about it. Now, let's talk a little bit about a Rav. There is a mitzvah that says, Aseh lecha Rav. Aseh lecha Rav means make yourself a Rav. And that Rav has to be yours. Lecha. Again, the Torah doesn't waste the words. If the Torah says lecha, you could have said Aseh Rav. It says Aseh lecha Rav. Make yourself, appoint yourself a Rav. Why is that? There is Rabbi Yoshua, I think. Here, Rabbi Ovadia Mebatenua, he explained it. He says, I'm going to translate it. I'm going to say it in Hebrew first and then I'll translate. ואני שמעתי, עשה לך רב, שיקבל לו רב אחד, שילמוד ממנו תמיד, ולא ילמוד היום מן האחד, ולמחר מן האחר. Translation. עשה לך רב means appoint yourself one Rav, and always ask that same Rav. Don't go today to this Rav and the next day to somebody else. Now, it could be, there could be a scenario when I asked the Rav a specific question and I got an answer. And my neighbor asked the same question and she went to her Rav. And she got the opposite answer. Let's say, for example, we want to put on blush on Shabbos. I went to my Rav and the Rav said, no, you can't do that. And she went to her Rav and the Rav said, yes, based on this and this halacha, you could say. And we meet together. And what do we do now? So there is a right way to do and there is a wrong way to do. The wrong way is to start fighting and say my Rav knows better than yours and my Rav based it on this and this halacha and maybe your Rav didn't consider it. It's not, this is the wrong thing to do. What we have to understand is a Rav, since they get their smicha, since they're being ordained and they're being permitted to be posek halacha, to give you a psak on your question, they have the liberty of looking into the halacha the way they know it and negotiate between themselves and decide on what's right and what's wrong to do. And whatever they say from Shamayim, they say Amen. And if my neighbor's Rav had a different view of it and he gave her a different psak, a different directive about what to do, that's also, they say from Shamayim, Amen. Because Eile ve'eile divrei Elokim Chaim means this is pure water, this is pure water, this is what Hashem has made us, this is the halacha, this is what we have to listen to, and from Shamayim they say Amen, even if it's two opposites. But the wrong thing to do is to start disobeying because this Rav says this and this Rav said that. We have one mitzvah. Our mitzvah is to listen to our Rav. And in my personal opinion, we have to be, as Jewish women, we have to be knowledgeable enough. When we go through everyday life, when we manage our life and our work and our kitchen and our homes, we have to be knowledgeable enough. So when we bump into a problem, we should know enough halacha to be able to identify there might be a problem here. In olden days, women used to take the chicken and shecht it, and then if they found something they didn't like in there, they went to the Rav, and they asked, look, something here looks wrong to me. Is it kosher? Is it not kosher? So today we don't really do it with the chickens, but we still have to be able to know that there might be a problem. We might have bumped into a problem, and every Jewish woman has to have a connection, a phone available to speak to a Rav of her choice who is willing to answer her questions, because we are directed as Jewish women to be able to ask a Rav every time we have a question. So then we have to go to the Rav, and we want to ask the Rav about makeup. Okay. We need to understand something. Rabbanim who grew up in yeshivas, they don't know anything about makeup. You ask them, am I allowed to put blush on Shabbos? They'll ask you, what's blush? And then you ask, how does a Rav who doesn't know what blush is, how can he be poisek for me? How can he be giving me what to do? How do you say hara in English? Directive about what to do. So the answer is simple. A Rav, after all his learning in yeshivas, all the years, and after being ordained, he knows about techniques, and he knows about kashrus, and he knows about Pesach, and he knows about Shabbos. And if you give him the technique, and he goes through all the halachas he knows, and through your question, he will know what to answer, how to answer your question. So when you go to a Rav, and the Rav asks, what's blush? You tell him, blush is color that I put on my face in order not to look very pale. The Rav will want to know if you're using a powder, if you're using cream, how do you put it on? Do you use your fingertips? Do you use a brush? Do you use a sponge? Every little detail here could change the halacha. For example, if you use a sponge, there might be a problem of squeezing here on Shabbos. If you use your fingertips, maybe the Rav will permit it. Now, if you put on creams are not permitted on Shabbos. So the Rav will want to know all this. It's like a judge. A judge sits and listens to all the evidence, and once you provide him with the evidence, he's able to answer your question. He's able to put a verdict about what's going to be here. So it's the same thing in here. We go to a Rav, and we have to present him with a question. So let's say we come to a Rav and we say, Shabbos makeup. Allowed or not allowed? Now, what's Shabbos makeup? You have to know what you're asking. There are some companies that sell you makeup, and they say, we went to a Rav, and the Rav said, our makeup is allowed to be applied on Shabbos. Why is it allowed to be applied on Shabbos? Well, it's only powder, and powder does not have, it cannot keep. You put on powder on dry skin, and it falls off after a while. It's called in Hebrew davar she'en lo achiza. It doesn't hold on you. So if it doesn't stay, it's like riding in water. You could ride whatever you want. It's not going to stay. So then you come to her and you say, can I just put on powder? Powder does not stay. I'm taking some powder and putting it on my lips. How long will it stay? Now, the Rav might say, it's okay. Now, he might pick up the phone and ask someone who knows about those powders. So let me tell you a little bit about powders. These days, mineral makeup is very in. Mineral makeup is actually powder. You smear it all over your face. But it has some oils in it. And once it adheres to your skin, the warmth of the skin makes it melt. So it's not already, it's no more powder. Now it turned into cream. That's something that has to come up. The Rav will want to know about it. Now, I personally sat with the Rav to ask him a few of my questions, because some people ask me questions about halacha and if I'm allowed to or not allowed to use it for Shabbos or for other aspects in life. So I got my answers. I sat with Rabbi Broin, but um, I'm not gonna. I could mention some of his answers, but I'm telling you now, as we discussed before, Aselecha Rav. You have to have a Rav, and you ask your own Rav. Don't count on the answers I got. It changes with every situation and with everyone who asks. So that's mineral makeup. Um, Another thing is, when I put on makeup on people, I use the pigments on the eyes. Pigments are very, very concentrated powders, and those powders stick to you. Many times I start the makeup in the morning. I start a color in our family 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning, and it has to last until midnight. You see them at midnight, and the eyes are made beautifully still, without anybody retouching it. Those pigments tend to stick a lot. So when you come to a Rav and you say, this is davar she'en lo achiza, it doesn't hold, not necessarily. Not necessarily so. It has to come up. The Rav will want to know about the material. What does it do and how long does it stay? Now, there are some companies that sell makeup for Shabbos, and what they claim is not that you're allowed to smear it on Shabbos. They claim it stays for 24 hours. 24 hours, then you're set for Shabbos, right? So, from my experience as a makeup artist, first of all, whatever I use tends to behave differently on every person. I could put the same lipstick on 3 family members. One will have it for the next day, one will lose it after a few minutes, okay? And one will keep it for a few hours. It behaves differently, and I'll tell you why. Because usually the skin behaves differently. If the skin is dry, it could absorb it very fast and it disappears. Or if the skin is dry, it could stay on nicely. And some oily skins, you put on a makeup and it just keeps on sliding off, whatever you do. There are some techniques to make the makeup stay longer. I'll just mention a few because I'm not giving a makeup lesson here. For example, if you want to have your eyeshadows stay longer, use a wet brush. Don't use a dry applicator. Wet it first, squeeze the water out, dip it in the powder, put it on. It's going to stay much longer. It's also going to be much more intense color. The same thing for eyeliner if you use a powder. And if you put concealer on an eyeshadow base before, it will lengthen the life of that eyeshadow for a few more hours. If you have very dry skin and you don't prepare it properly, the makeup will not last very long. If you put on a moisturizer before, the makeup will last longer. Powder on top of makeup, clear translucent powder, will make it last much longer. So these are just a few of my little tricks to keep the makeup on. There are many more, but this is not the time to do it. So that could be a makeup for Shabbos. Now, I remember there was a very specific lipstick from a specific company that stayed for a very long time. You know the long-lasting lipsticks that come together with that moisturizer next to it that comes in 2 parts? The idea behind any lipstick is, the more oil it has in it, the less it will stay. The drier it is, the more it will stay. Those lipsticks, they stay long because the liquid in it, which is probably alcohol, evaporates after a little while. And then you're left only with a color that sticks really hard to your skin. And it gives you a very dry feeling. You feel like your lips are being cracked. That is the reason the moisturizer is being sold together with that lipstick. You put it on, and then you're fine. It gives it back the shine. It gives it back the comfort. And if you're going to spend the whole evening with that lipstick, I always recommend take that moisturizer with you once you feel it, because it dries after a few hours. Apply it back on, and it's like you have a new lipstick on. But you can't do that on Shabbos. on Shabbos. It gets very dry. You're left with an uncomfortable feeling. You have a long-lasting lipstick and maybe you look beautiful, but you feel like you're going to platz any minute. So I came up with the idea of applying some oil on it. Food, you mean the canola oil, olive oil, any oil that you use for food. But then again, you have to ask a Rav if it's permitted or not. I've heard a yes, I've heard a no from different people. If you're really interested in doing it, you should ask a Rav.
You could probably eat something oily.
Yeah, that's another way to do it. Then I bumped into a different problem. There was one specific color that stayed very, very long. I applied it before Shabbos. I made sure to apply it several times, and I did have it last on my lips until Motzei Shabbos. This was most of these colors. They start after the next day. They start like pieces come off, and it looks so bad that I would rather not put lipstick to begin with. But that particular lipstick stayed beautifully. And then I'm sitting in 770 with my friend and I'm talking, and another friend is coming in and she's looking at me and she talks to my friend who's sitting next to me and she said, "Tell your friend that she should not put on lipstick on Shabbos." Now, I know there are people who tend to ignore what we are supposed to listen to, and sadly they put on lipstick on Shabbos. And I really didn't want to be considered one of them. I'm very careful not to put on lipstick on Shabbos. So I told her I happened to put that lipstick before Shabbos. So she was amazed. She said, "You're serious? How come it stayed that long?" I explained to her which one I used. She said, "But you know what? It's Maris Ein." You know what Maris Ein is? Maris Ein is like this. Sometimes you do things that are permitted by halacha, but they look like it's something forbidden. For example, there are people who will never walk to McDonald's or a non-kosher store just so people should not think that this person walked in and must be okay. So that's Maris Ein. There was a time that a parve milk, for example, was not very popular in our places. In the past few years, Baruch Hashem, we have soy milk and we have coconut milk and we have almond milk and we have all that. But in previous years, people who were allergic to milk and they needed let's say almond milk, and they ate it with something fleshik, by halacha, they were required to put on some pieces of almond in it because people thought it's milk, and people saw you a few minutes ago having fleshik, and people would think since you're such a firm, nice girl, and you had fleshik and now you're having milchik, then it must be okay. So that's called Maris Ein, that it deceives the eye, and deceiving the eye is a problem. So I went to the Ram and I asked him that, I told him that story and I said, "Is it okay to put that lipstick on before Shabbos? People think I apply my lipstick on Shabbos." He says, "People have to know that these days there are ways to put on lipstick and it should stay on Shabbos. You don't have to worry about the Maris Ein." But then again, ask your own Rav. Now I see that you girls, I'm speaking to a not married crowd yet, but we're all old and mature enough to know that married women go to mikveh sometimes, and for the tvila, for dipping in the mikveh, you need to be careful of a few things that could be chatzitza. Something that concerns us as chatzitza, even as unmarried women, is, let's say you have nail polish on and you're going to wash your hands for bread. If the nail polish starts chipping off, it might be a question. It could be that you're not allowed to wash your hands for bread when you have chipping nail polish. Because this is something not perfect. People don't like to be shown this way. Once you care about it, it makes it chatzitza. Chatzitza is like something separating you, between you and doing the mitzvah of washing your hands for bread or from dipping in the mikveh. You're gonna bump into many, many questions like this when you have to go to mikveh. I'll just mention that just on top, hair color could be a problem for dipping in the mikveh, because if it's very fresh, it tends to go off. As long as the color comes off, it could be it's considered a chatzitza. After a few days, it settles in very deep. The leftovers are gone. then you're okay. But once your hair starts growing again and the white roots are showing, and you're concerned about it, the concern about it is an important aspect of the halacha here. Once you're concerned about it and embarrassed to be people should see you like this. It's the same thing like with the cheap nail polish. Once you're concerned about it, it becomes a question.
If you're not concerned about it, it's not a question.
No, if you have the few chips and you're gonna go out like this, it's a question for a Rav. It's a question for a Rav. I would say go and ask the Rav about it. Just about manicures. I have this phobia of manicures, for nail salons. I don't know. I don't know how much they clean it, and even if they clean it well, I don't know if it's really disinfected. If I do walk into a nail salon, I always ask them to pull out of a package a new, a new file for me. I pay an extra $1, but it pays for me to know that I'm not getting anybody else's fungus on my nails. Let me explain about the nails a little bit. Now, these are nails of a woman who worked in the kitchen today. Forgive me. And a woman who just applied some makeup, and the black is still on. I'm sorry. The nails are on our fingers because Hashem has a good reason for creating everything. Our body has nerves in it, and the very tender edges of the nails are under our nails. Of the nerves of our body are under the nails. The nails were created to be a protection over it. If your nail falls off, you have a very risky area in there. You don't want to hurt this area. You have to be very careful. So now around it, what we call cuticles, it's a layer of skin that grows in there to prevent the germs from going in. So when you start pulling at it and cutting it, you are asking for trouble. And that's what they do in nail salon. You allow the germs to go in. You give them a space to go in. You might look beautiful, but then again, you're going to start experiencing troubles later on. That's why I'm explaining my phobia of nail salons. I do it very rarely for special occasions. Now, there is something that's called gel polish. I'm sure you've all heard of it. Gel polish is done in a different way. It's not like you put it on, you dry it under the machine, and then you remove it with a little bit nail polish remover. Gel polish needs to be done with it's a specific material, that a base color that is put on has to be dried under UV light, and then another base, and again under the UV light, and then another layer of the nail polish, which it's not going to dry in the air even if you sit like this for 10 hours. It needs to be dried under the UV light. This UV light is what they use in tanning salons. When you go into a tanning salon, it's the same type of light. Now, there is good news here and bad news here. The bad news is that UV light could cause cancer. It does pose a risk of cancer. The good news is that risk is small. It's not a big risk, but that risk exists. So if you really feel like having a gel polish, and the biggest advantage of a gel polish is that it stays for a few weeks without you having to worry about being chipped. So if you really want to enjoy that, I suggest when you do that, take with you a pair of disposable gloves. And when you sit under that UV light, cut off the tips and just expose the nails. At least your hands will be protected from that light. Why do you have to pose risk for your skin when you don't have to? So only the nails will be exposed to that light. So you minimize that little risk, you minimize it even more. Now, if you have it on,
gloves help against
the gloves gives you an extra protection for your skin. Well, you have to expose the nails, otherwise they will not dry.
But I'm saying gloves, the yes. Rays don't go through the gloves.
There is some protection. I don't know if it's 100%, but there is more protection than your bare skin. Again, when you are going to reach the age of the mikveh, then some people say that since it's so perfect, that polish, and it could stay for weeks, it might be okay to be dipping in the mikveh with that. Again, it's a question for your Rav. Now, when you come to remove it, it's either dipping it in acetone for a half an hour, You can't just remove it. Either you dip it in acetone for half an hour, or they put balls soaked in acetone and they tape it on you for half an hour, or then they sit and they file it so to remove it. Now, on the nail, there is this protective layer that's the same on the teeth. It's kind of enamel that protects your teeth and protects your nail. Once they file it, you're asking for trouble again. The protection of your nail, which your nerves are underneath, is compromised. So think about it before you go. Ultimately, it's your decision. I'm just bringing up all those things to think about. Now, the last thing I want to speak about is permanent makeup. Permanent makeup is done for several reasons. There are some women who want to wake up every morning, they don't want to bother with makeup. They want to look good, look refreshed, go out the door, and without bothering being okay for the next few years. There are some frum women who say like this: I'm going to look like I applied makeup before Shabbos, which I didn't, but I'm going to look good on Shabbos. And there are some people who need it for restorative reasons. There are some people who lost their eyebrows, some parts of the body that might be disfigured, and some of them might be able to look a little better if we deceive the eye with that permanent makeup. Permanent makeup is done with a needle that engraves your skin. Your skin is being poked with a series of little dots or little lines right next to each other. That needle is connected to a tube, and that tube is filled with a pigment, it's filled with a color, and that color goes to your skin, underneath your skin. Now, the Torah was very specific. The only difference between permanent makeup and tattoo is that instead of this burly, muscly, bearded guy with the tattooed all over who does it for you, it's a nice, probably from makeup lady who does it in a nice clinic on a nice table, but the technique is the same. And the idea is to bring the colors underneath, between your skin and the flesh. Now, the skin has 3 layers. There is the epidermis, which is on top. There is the dermis, which is underneath. And then there is the hypodermis, which is underneath the dermis. The deeper you go with the needle, the longer it will stay. The more painful it is, the more it will swell after. Well, it tends to get swollen after, and then it heals. And then this is when you start looking good. The Torah was very specific about tattoos. It says, "Uchtovet ka'aka lo titnu bivsarchem." You cannot tattoo yourself, and the reason was because people used to do it in olden days as a type of avodah zarah, as worshiping the idols. They used to do all kind of pictures, I guess, on their skins. Now, how long does it stay on the skin? It stays several years. It depends on how old or how young your skin is, what the quality was of the pigment you were using, and how deep it went. The deeper it went, the more it will stay. Some makeup artists claim that if you do just the epidermis, the top layer of the dermis, you don't go deep enough, it's not considered to be a tattoo. And they asked a Rav about it. I also sat with Rabbi Broin. Rabbi Broin, of all the makeup questions, he emphasized this is a very, very serious question. This is not a simple question. A lot of halachos are involved in it. Some people are being permitted by a Rav to do it, and that could be due to some disfiguring or losing the eyebrows. You don't have eyebrows and you want to look, kavod habriot, the way you go out, you don't want people to look at you funny. So you have to look presentable, normal. So if you don't look normal without something on your body, and permanent makeup could fix it, then you might get a heter from a Rav. But the Rav has to ponder over this. He has to know the reasons, the techniques, the materials, and only then he will be able to tell you if you could do it or you cannot do it. Again, this is not something to take lightly. Permanent makeup should be very much consulted with the Rav, and most probably you're going to get a no if it's just to look a little better on Shabbos or something like that. But maybe your Rav will allow you. And if your Rav will allow you, then you did Aseh Lecha Rav, and you listen to your Rav, and you did what every Jewish woman is supposed to be doing. We as Jewish women, especially as homemakers, which you, Mitzvah Hashem, you will be, we have a very, very heavy responsibility on our shoulders. Sometimes we run our kitchen when we run our homes, and only Hashem knows what we're doing. And let's say we didn't check that particular thing, and we didn't buy something with a very good hechsher, and we're feeding our kids, and our kids know that mommy is responsible for the hechsherim in the house and what she's feeding us, and they're trusting us. The only one who will know that something was wrong is Hashem. This responsibility is enormous, and it's only between us and Hashem, and we have to remember it. If we have enough honesty inside us, and we have enough sense of responsibility for our families, we're going to be very, very careful. Now, there is this passage that says, Kulam ahuvim, kulam brurim, and I'm saying, kulam yafim. We're all beautiful. We're all Hashem's daughters, with makeup or without. Thank you for your time. I hope I answered some of your questions.
Do you have time if people have questions?
Sure.
No.
That means I was clear enough.
I got a little bit late. I was thinking about you saying the mineral powder on Shabbat.
Yeah.
I went to the mineral store in Brazil.
Right.
And besides the fact that it becomes it becomes like liquid in your face.
Right. I mentioned that about mineral makeup.
Yeah. So the woman told me I was going to buy for Shabbos. I was so excited, and she said, actually, like when you put the brush, you need to move it, and like the mineral, the only way it gets into your face is because there is heat involved in the friction between the brush and the mineral. It becomes like you are heating the mineral, so it will come to your face. So when she said that, I was like, no, like I can't use it because if I'm heating up a mineral, also is a problem. So
I think the heat comes from the warmth of your skin.
No, of the brush.
Just from a simple brush or mixing it?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't know how much warmth it could create, but maybe.
Especially for the mineral, because as it's a mineral, it has like a lot of static or something like that.
Static.
Mm-hmm.
Might be.
She told me that, I was like, oh, that's a sign I shouldn't buy it for Shabbos.
Yeah. Well, usually when you use mineral makeup, you apply it on your face, it still feels like powder. Only after a minute or two it becomes like creamy because it melts. So maybe the beginning of the heating process starts with the brush and then it ends on the face.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. When are you girls having your spa night?
Next week, Wednesday night.
Next week, Wednesday night. Is it here? Is it being
here?
Okay, I think I'm going to be here doing some makeups.
Amazing.
Yeah. Is there someone here with a very good camera?
Hiya. You're mostly has the camera.
I would love if somebody could take pictures of before the makeup and after. That would be great.
And if somebody could volunteer to be the model, right?
Actually,
no, I'll do makeup on whoever wants to be made up.
Pictures, but it's not a very good camera.
Can you talk with Hannah about that?
Yeah. I'll discuss it with
her. Okay.
Just to say that we're not all young girls. Some people here are married or have families. Are there any specific besides for the you know, you
Mikveh?
mentioned like very lightly about the nail polish or the hair dye. Are there any specific other things that maybe are
Of
problem when it
chatzitza?
comes to mikvah or anything else?
I'm trying to think what's the right word in English for chatzitza. Chatzitza is separation. When you go into mikveh, there has to be nothing between you and the water. If there is something like makeup, then this is a chatzitza. This is separation. A little word of advice. Eye makeup, very hard to get rid of before the mikveh. I remember when there was a time, this is being recorded.
Do you want me to turn off?
No, you could go into the water and when you come out, as much as even if you work 10 minutes on every eye before, you come out and you find 1 crumb of black, you have to go back in. So what I suggest is before the mikveh, stay away from eye makeup for at least 2 days. I mean, the day of and the day before. No mascara. It's very hard to remove. If you still have to go and you still have makeup on, baby oil does a wonderful job. Eye makeup remover, which is also, I think, based on oil. Yeah, and you have to do a lot of rubbing until your finger comes completely clean. Otherwise, you'll have to go back in. What else could be separation? Well, it's not a class about taras and mishpacha, but nails have to be bare of color unless you got permission from a rav that let's say you have a gel polish which you're supposed to stay for the next 3 weeks and it's looking perfect. Maybe you'll get a heter if you ask your rav. Maybe we'll say it's okay to dip with it. Otherwise, nails have to be bare of colors and cut short, not to be very long. What else? No collar, no piercing, no jewelry.
No piercing or no.
I mean, if you
Nothing
pierced
in the
already, you're
piercing.
gonna have to pull it out.
Right.
Yeah. No jewelry. Let's say you have a crust of a bruise. It has to be removed gently as much as you could. You're not supposed to cause yourself to bleed. Again, if there is a question, there is the mikveh lady is available for answering questions, and if she needs to, she picks up the phone and she calls a rav, who is usually available at those hours for her calls. Any other questions? Okay, so I'm always at your service. It was nice to meet you all. I'll see you next week.
Oh, yeah. Looking forward to seeing you
That's
next week.
It's next week already. I didn't realize it's a week from now. Just gonna finish the water. Good night, everybody.
Thank
Take
you
care.
so much. Good night.